The dropship floated above the planet Xerxes 9, like a ghost in the black sky. No one had returned from this place. No machine, no drone, no soldier. Everything died here. The surface was known to melt steel. The air was poison. The ground pulsed with radiation, and yet Earth's command decided to send one more. Not a team, not a robot, it's just a man. He was silent in the drop pod, muscles still, eyes focused. His name was Cade. No one knew much about him except that he had passed every test. Extreme heat, cold, pressure, fear. He never blinked, never panicked. Some whispered he wasn't normal. Maybe that's why he was chosen. As the pod dropped, Earth's satellites lost signal one by one. Xerxes 9 jammed everything. They couldn't track him, couldn't guide him. He was truly alone. The command center back on Earth watched as the last feed from the pod flickered and vanished, yet his vitals remained strong. That made no sense. The air should have killed him in seconds. The pod slammed into the rocky ground, steam bursting from its sides. The hatch hissed open. Cade stepped out slowly. No helmet, no oxygen tank. Just a light suit and calm breath. His boots touched the black soil. It didn't melt. The wind blew dust across his face. No burns. He looked around. The sky was greenish-gray. Dead trees stood like broken bones. Lightning cracked above him, but the thunder made no sound. He walked forward like he belonged there. Back on Earth, generals and scientists stared at the blank screen. One of them whispered, "He's still alive?" Another asked, "How?" No one had an answer. Cade moved deeper into the unknown land. He touched the strange rock walls with his hand. The surface glowed faintly. Something felt familiar, like a dream he couldn't fully remember. The land was dead, but it didn't fight him. It watched him. A low humming sound came from the ground. He looked down. The soil vibrated slightly under his feet. It wasn't random. It was alive. He walked toward a cliff where an old structure stood. It wasn't human-made. The stone had markings, not letters, but symbols. The wind here felt warm, almost welcoming. He placed his hand on the stone and closed his eyes. His heart beat slowly, calmly. In that moment, the symbols under his hand lit up, glowing blue. He didn't react. He didn't panic.
Ice.
It was like he expected this. The ground behind him cracked, and a strange shape moved in the fog, tall, thin, and silent. But when Cade turned, there was nothing. Just dust, floating in the air. Still, he knew he was not alone. Something was watching, not with eyes, but with the planet itself. Every step he took, the ground responded. Every breath he made, the air bent around him. He stood still and whispered, "I'm back." No one heard him. It's not Earth, not anyone. But the planet did, and in the distance a gate began to open. Cade walked slowly toward the ancient gate that had started to open on its own. The stone doors moved with a deep grinding sound, like something waking up after a long sleep. Dust rose into the air, but the wind pushed it away from him, as if the planet itself didn't want to harm him. He didn't flinch. His expression stayed calm, his eyes sharp. The path ahead led into darkness, but he stepped forward without hesitation. Inside the gate, a tunnel stretched deep underground. The walls were smooth, glowing faintly with lines of blue and green light. There were no lights or machines, but the space felt alive, like something breathing slow and steady. As Cade walked, the walls seemed to respond. The glow became brighter with each step. It was like the place recognized him, accepted him. Far behind him, a shape moved again through the thick fog. It didn't walk or run. It slid, silent and strange, like a shadow without form. But it never got too close. It only followed. Watched. Cade stopped for a moment in the tunnel. His hand touched the wall again. It was warm. It's not like stone, more like skin. He looked up. Symbols above him shifted slightly, as if rearranging themselves. They made no sense to anyone else, but Cade stared at them as if they were familiar. He didn't read them like words. He understood them like a memory. In the command center back on Earth, silence filled the room. All signals were gone, yet his vitals still came through, heart strong, brain activity normal. One of the generals leaned forward and asked, "Are we sure he's human?" No one answered. Deep in the tunnel, Cade heard something strange, a whisper, not in the air, but in his mind. It wasn't words, more like feelings, curious, confused, but not angry. The tunnel opened into a large chamber. In the center, a pool of still black water reflected soft light from the walls. On the far side, a statue stood tall, a figure with armor like his, but the face had no features, no eyes, no mouth, just smooth stone. Cade approached it slowly. As he got closer, the statue cracked slightly. A small piece fell off, revealing a face beneath, a human face. No, not just human, his own. Exactly the same. Same jaw, same scar above the left brow. It was like looking at a stone version of himself. He didn't speak. He just stared. Then he looked down into the pool. His reflection stared back. But behind it, another face appeared. Pale, thin, glowing eyes. It vanished when he turned around. Something was here with him. Something old. It didn't want to kill him. It wanted to understand him. Or maybe remember him. The walls began to pulse with light. The same whisper returned, but clearer now. One word formed in his mind. Return. Cade whispered back. I never left. And at that moment, the chamber shook gently. Not like danger, more like a welcome. But outside the gate, the shape in the fog came closer. It had no form, but it had a presence, heavy and cold. It stopped just before the entrance and didn't enter. It wasn't allowed. This place had accepted Cade, but rejected everything else. The silence around him grew deep again. But it wasn't empty anymore. It was watching, waiting. The planet had chosen him, and he had no idea why. Cade sat near the edge of the black pool, watching his reflection ripple with the soft vibrations coming from the chamber walls. The air around him felt warmer now, thicker, like it carried weight. But it didn't press down on him. It held him gently, as if the planet itself was making space just for him. He wasn't afraid, but he wasn't sure why. The stone statue with his face stood behind him, still cracked from before. Tiny pieces continued to fall off, revealing more detail beneath. Armor lines, scars, even a mark on the neck, the exact same one Cade had. He raised his hand slowly and touched the mark on his own skin. A memory flickered in his head, but it wasn't his. Or maybe it was, a long time ago. He turned his head as he heard a soft sound behind him. It wasn't a footstep. It wasn't even real sound, but it felt like one. Something was watching him again, not with eyes, but with something deeper. Like the planet itself had a mind. Like it could see without looking. He stood up and walked around the edge of the pool. His boots made no echo. The chamber swallowed every sound. He looked at the wall, where the symbols had glowed before. Now they began to shift again, moving like liquid across stone. Symbol rose out of the wall like a hologram. It hovered in front of him. As he reached toward it, it suddenly changed. His hand froze in midair. The floating symbol wasn't just a shape anymore. It had become a memory. Suddenly, his mind was pulled into a vision. He was still standing in the chamber, but everything around him changed. The walls were gone. The sky above was burning orange. Ships flew overhead. Alien ships. Thousands of them. Below, soldiers ran across cracked ground, firing weapons he didn't recognize. In the center of it all stood a tall figure, alone, not hiding, not running. The figure raised its hand, and the sky itself cracked with light. One by one, the alien ships crashed. The soldiers turned to ash, and the planet had changed. As if it felt what the figure felt, anger, pain, protection. Then the figure turned toward him. Same armor, same scar, same face. Cade gasped and stepped back. The vision ended. He was back in the chamber. The floating symbol disappeared. Breathed slowly, deeply. His heart was racing now, that vision. It was too real. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't fake. It was a memory. And not. From another person. From something else. From the planet. It had shown him what had happened. Or what was going to happen. Or maybe what had been erased from his mind long ago. He looked at the statue again. His double. Then a low sound echoed through the chamber. Not from the walls, from his chest. His body vibrated, like something inside him had activated. He fell to his knees, gripping the stone floor. His eyes blurred for a moment, and a voice entered his mind. "You were not born. You were made." Cade shook his head. "That's not true." The voice didn't argue, simply repeated. "You were made here. You belong to us." The lights in the chamber turned red for a second, then back to blue. And outside, the shape in the fog began to twist and grow. The planet wasn't just watching anymore. It was waking up. It had questions for the man who didn't know who or what he really was. The chamber lights pulsed slowly, like a heart beating beneath the stone. Cade sat with his back against the statue that wore his face. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from confusion. The voice was still inside him, soft, distant. Now, but still there. It had said he was made, that he belonged here. But how could that be true? He was raised on Earth. He had memories. He had a life, didn't he? He looked down at his hands. They were strong, scarred from battle, steady like always. But now they felt unfamiliar, like someone else's, or something else's. As he stood up, the ground beneath his boots responded with a low hum, not mechanical, not electrical. It was alive. The planet itself was alive, and it was listening to him. He walked deeper into the chamber. A small path had opened, one that hadn't been there before. The walls narrowed, glowing with soft blue light, guiding him forward. Step echoed through the passage like a whisper. The air grew cooler, quieter. Then he entered another room, smaller, round, and filled with floating shards of light. They hung in the air like broken pieces of memory. He stepped closer to one of the shards. It pulsed as he approached. Without touching it, his mind was pulled into another vision. He stood in a green field, surrounded by tall golden towers. Alien creatures walked around him, tall, elegant, strange, but they bowed their heads to him. They treated him with respect or fear. Then he looked down. His body was not his own. It was stronger, not human. His skin glowed faintly, marked with the same symbols from the chamber walls. He raised his hand in the vision, and the ground shook slightly in response. He didn't need machines. The planet obeyed his will. The vision shattered. Back in the room, Cade stumbled back, breathing hard. Another memory? Another life? Was this the truth? Does he want something more than human? He turned to leave the chamber, but something stopped him. A shape stood in the tunnel, tall, dark, featureless. The thing from the fog. It had followed him inside, but it didn't attack. It didn't move. It just stood there, pulsing with dark energy. Cade took a step forward. The shape reacted. The walls around it dimmed. The air felt heavy. Then, from behind it, another figure stepped forward, a smaller one, covered in armor, with a smooth black helmet. A voice came from the helmet, sharp and mechanical. "You don't belong here." Cade narrowed his eyes. "Then why's the planet letting me in?" The figure didn't answer. Instead, it raised a weapon. But before it could fire, the ground beneath it cracked open. The dark shape behind it screamed silently and dissolved into black mist. The armored figure stumbled, but didn't fall. Turned and ran, disappearing into the fog. The crack in the floor sealed itself. Cade stood still, staring at the place where the ground had split. The planet had protected him. He whispered, "What am I?" And the voice inside him replied, "You are what we lost. You are what we buried. You are what we need." The walls around him shifted again. A new door opened, leading downward. Cade didn't hesitate. He walked through, the lights following him. It was no longer just exploring. He was remembering. Piece by piece, the planet was giving his past back to him. And far above, outside the chamber, Earth's rescue team finally entered orbit. But the planet didn't welcome them. It turned silent, cold, because Xerxes 9 had already chosen deep beneath the surface of Xerxes 9. Cade walked through the ancient corridor, the walls alive with soft light and distant echoes. The path narrowed, then opened into a massive underground hall. Floating above the floor were strange crystal panels, each one pulsing with quiet energy. They hovered like stars in space, connected by beams of light. The air shimmered with power. This was not ruins. This was a memory vault. Cade stepped onto the first panel. It held his weight easily, floating him forward. As he moved across the hall, the crystals around him flickered. More visions came, not forced, not painful, but like dreams rising from a deep sleep. Saw alien fleets burning in the sky, crushed by storms that moved on command. He saw cities built in harmony with nature, ruled by tall beings with glowing skin. And in the center of all of it, he saw himself, not as a soldier, not as a man, as something older, a guardian, a weapon, a key. His breath caught. The truth was rising inside him like fire. But then the vision shifted. He saw fear. The guardians turned on each other. The planet screamed. It began rejecting life, crushing every visitor, melting every machine.
Ow.
To protect what was left, to bury the truth. And before the collapse, the last guardian, the one who looked like him, walked into a chamber and lay down in stone. The body slept. The mind was scattered, forgotten, hidden. Cade's eyes widened. The statue in the chamber wasn't a monument. It was a tomb, and he had woken from it. He stumbled off the floating panel as it reached the final platform. In front of him stood a round door covered in symbols that now made perfect sense. He didn't need to read them. He understood them. Behind the door, he knew, was the core. The planet's heart, where his full memory waited. He raised his hand. The door began to unlock, but above ground, the rescue ship. From Earth entered the upper atmosphere. Inside, the crew tried to scan the surface, but nothing responded. The planet blocked every signal. One officer turned to the commander and said, "Sir, I think it's alive." The commander nodded. "Then we force it to open." They launched a drone strike. Several high-speed probes shot toward the surface. But before they could land, the air turned solid. Not with ice or wind, with energy. The probes shattered mid-air, falling in dust. The planet had sealed itself. Back in the vault, the voice inside Cade spoke again. It was no longer strange. It sounded like his own. "They are not your people. They fear what you are." He whispered, "What am I?" And the voice answered, "You are what remains. The last of us." The guardian returned. The door in front of him fully opened. A warm light poured out, bathing him in golden glow. His skin reacted glowing, faintly like the figures in the visions. His scars pulsed with hidden markings. His body remembered, his mind unlocked. And behind him a quiet alarm sounded. The planet had detected Earth's presence, not as allies, as intruders. Cade turned toward the sound. His eyes had changed, no longer just human. He wasn't here to be rescued. He was here to awaken. The golden light from the core surrounded Cade like a sunrise beneath the earth. He stepped forward into the heart of the planet, where the walls weren't made of stone but living energy. They shifted and moved, forming patterns that spoke directly. To his mind, no voice this time, no whispers, just truth. He stood still as the chamber read him, every cell, every thought, every hidden memory. The ground beneath his feet lit up with ancient symbols. His armor began to dissolve, not melt, but break apart like dust returning to the air. What remained underneath wasn't a suit, it was a body not made by Earth. His skin shimmered with faint lines, not tattoos, not wounds, but codes, instructions, something written into him long ago. Something meant to be forgotten, till now. Cade raised his hand slowly and the room reacted. A floating panel of light appeared in front of him, showing Earth's rescue ship hovering above the atmosphere. He could see the people on board. Faces he had once called familiar. But now they looked different. Nervous, impatient, afraid. They weren't here to help him. They were here to bring him back, to study him, or silence him. One of the generals on the ship gave a command. The crew began preparing orbital strikes. "He's not answering," they said. "We can't risk whatever's down there." Cade lowered his hand. He understood now. The planet hadn't just accepted him, it had created him. Long ago, when war came to Xerxes 9, the beings here built a guardian, not a machine, not a god, but something in between. Flesh and mind shaped to connect with the planet. To defend it, when the war ended in fire, the guardian was sealed away. It's buried in sleep. It's hidden from time until Earth came and brought him back. He turned and walked toward the center of the core. The floor opened, revealing a small pedestal with a strange crystal glowing bright blue. As he touched it, the ground above the planet trembled. Storm clouds formed instantly, circling the atmosphere like a living shield. On the rescue ship, alarms screamed. Systems shut down, power drained. The commander stared at the planet's surface, now glowing with lines of light stretching across its skin like veins. "He's doing this," someone whispered. "He's controlling it." Back underground, Cade stood calm and still. The planet no longer whispered. It sang. It remembered him. It welcomed him. And it obeyed. A voice old and clear echoed in his mind, not a message, but a memory from long before he ever wore a human name. "You were not meant to leave. You are the will of the world." Cade looked up. "No," he said. "I came back to protect it." And in that moment, the fog that had followed him since the beginning, the dark shape appeared again. But this time it didn't hide. It entered the chamber and solidified. A tall creature made of black glass and shadow, with eyes like dying stars. The last echo of the enemy from the war. The reason the Guardian had been made, it struck. The chamber shook. Light clashed with darkness. But Cade didn't fall. He raised his hand and the entire planet answered. A beam of light shot from the ground, piercing the shadow creature's chest. It screamed and dissolved into dust. Silence returned. Outside, the rescue ship finally lost control. It was pushed gently but firmly out of orbit by the planet's magnetic field. Not destroyed, just removed. Cade stood alone in the core, but no longer empty. He remembered everything. Who he was. What he was made for. He wasn't human, not fully. But he wasn't their enemy either. He looked up at the planet's ceiling, where no one could see him now. He spoke one last time. "Tell Earth not to come. Back. I'm not theirs anymore." And with that, the chamber sealed. The surface grew calm. And the planet that had rejected all life kept only one far beneath the silent surface of Xerxes 9, the core dimmed to a soft blue glow. The storm above faded. The ground returned to stillness. And deep within the ancient chamber, Cade stood alone, no longer confused, no longer divided. He was no longer just a man from Earth. He was the memory of a fallen world, the last guardian. He walked slowly through the glowing hallways, each step echoing with quiet power. The planet moved with him. Doors opened, light followed, paths appeared. It wasn't reacting to him, it was connected to him. The air pulsed with calm energy. Life had returned to this dead place, but only for him. In the skies above, Earth's rescue ship drifted at the edge of orbit, powerless. The crew had lost contact, not just with Cade, but with their own systems. No weapons worked, no scans. Reached the surface. They watched the glowing lines across the planet's skin fade into silence again. "Do we try again?" someone asked. The commander shook his head. "We already did too much." Back on the surface, Cade stepped outside for the first time. Since the awakening, the black soil no longer felt hostile. Strange winds wrapped around him like they recognized him. Trees that once looked like bones now stood tall, with faint green growth on their branches. Life was beginning to return, not because it was allowed, but because he allowed it. He walked across the valley where his drop pod had once landed. The metal shell had rusted in record time. It didn't belong here, neither did Earth, but he did. He stopped at the edge of a cliff and looked up at the sky. He could feel the ship above, the people watching, still waiting, still hoping. call them. But he didn't. Instead, he lifted his hand, and a signal burst from the planet, not in anger, not in warning. It was a message, a simple truth sent in their language. Do not return. This world has chosen. It remembers now. Back on the ship, the message came through with perfect clarity. Everyone on board went silent. Some felt relief, some felt fear. Others deep down felt guilt. The commander gave the order. Pull back. He made his choice. Seth turned away from the planet slowly, silently. Xerxes 9 returned. To peace. Cade watched the ship vanish into the stars. For a moment, he felt a quiet sadness. Earth had raised him, trained him, shaped his thoughts. But it had never known who or what he truly was. Only this place had known, and waited. He sat down on a stone near the edge of the cliff, where the sky met the horizon, closed his eyes. The ground beneath him hummed gently. The vines swayed with life again. And far below, the ancient machines of the planet, long buried, began to power up, ready to grow again, rebuild, revive. Cade wasn't just their guardian now. He was their beginning. The planet had rejected all. Life for centuries, but it had waited for one. And now it had him. Forever.